Welcome everybody to SPEARATICS by SSN Sports Network. We appreciate everybody coming and listening and or watching the show. I want to give a shout out to Sideline Sports Network. Um, so we're the Florida State page one of the Florida State pages for Sideline Sports Network. But if you have an NFL team or a MLB team or a NHL team or whatever have it, Sideline Sports covers it. You can find any of the pages if you just do capital SSN underscore in the team's name on Twitter or Instagram. So please, if you have other teams that you want to follow, try Sideline Sports Network out. Also, I want to let everybody know that this is brought to you by Game Day Vodka. Um, please check them out. You can order off of their online store, or you can go to Publix, or now I'm finding out more local liquor, wine, and spirit stores also have it. ABC is one of them. With that, we're going to get straight into a recap of Florida State versus Wake Forest. Um, I'm going to kind of jump into all the all the fans need to chill out just a little bit. We lost one game. Yes, it was the first technically ranked opponent we played. We played, I believe it was 39. I'm not making excuses, just telling facts. We played 39 fifth and sixth year seniors. They returned 79% of their production this year. I didn't, nor did anybody on this crew thought that we would lose to Wake Forest at Doak Campbell. Um, Unfortunately, we were all wrong. There were a couple of us that said Michael Pittman was going to have his best game of the season so far. He did, as in production wise, 2 TDs. So it was very nice to see him come out of his shell. Johnny Wilson also had a nice game. Seems like to me the worst part of it is, we're going to talk a lot about. I will say a lot about no calls from the Zebras. Like I seen a lot of holding calls, a lot of pass interference calls that weren't called in the favor of Florida State. But you cannot leave it up to the refs for you to win a game or for you to be competitive in the game. Um, so, with that said, Taylor, I'll let you jump right into your thoughts of the game and what you want to start with. And also, I'll be bringing on Chip here in just a moment for him to give his after James gives his. But Taylor, go ahead.
Yeah, that game was pretty frustrating. Coach Fuller, he talked about how it was basically we couldn't get off the field on third downs. But ironically enough, I disagree with him. You were on the field for third downs with Wake Forest, and they were 10 for 18. Of course, that's a lot of third down conversions. But the problem is, through their third downs, 1 yard, 12 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, 1 yard, 2 yards, 4 yards, 8 yards, 7 yards, 1 yard, and then 11, 13, 16, 4, 11, 6, 10, 5, and 2. Their average yardage was 6.6 yards per conversion, which is not good. Your first and second down defense was terrible to a point where I thought that Ellison, a guy who really it wasn't really productive this season, you were able to really bottle him up last year's meeting. But in this year's meeting, you had 114 yards allowed to him. You were able to really not stop the run at all. That was your first in the slow mesh system that you did. And you were able to give him easy third down conversions to a 6-year senior at this point. I thought that Florida State offensively on third down, they didn't give themselves any favors. On the same yardage for conversion rate, they had 9.2 yards to get to. That's not good either. Your offensive line was beat up. Your offensive tackles, both Darius Washington and Jazz Turntine, both did not play very well. Darius Washington, most definitely. I thought they were beat up front, and I thought they really, really needed Robert Scott in this moment, and just didn't happen. Now, the problem is it reminded me a lot of Louisville last year. You came out flat pretty early on in the game. You were able to kind of bounce back in the second half, but it's far too late at that point. The offense kind of struggled to move the ball after the first drive in the first quarter. Jordan Travis, he knew what he was doing. Whenever he fumbled the ball right there on the design run. I think he understood how big of a swing that was, and in terms of that, they went up 21-7, and then they went up 28-7 after the second half, and then you kind of saw Florida State start to wake up a little bit more, and I thought that was the jolt they really needed, but it was far too far late. Thought they didn't utilize Pittman later in the third quarter after that huge 34-yard punt return. I thought they needed to use him a little bit more. Just a lot of aspects that were kind of frustrating to a team that you thought was kind of over the hump at this point. Not panicking, but I do think that there were some encouraging signs later on in the game. But you can't have those if you're going to beat a good team like Wake Forest. And that was our problem going forward there. And I think Florida State's going to have to bounce back in a big way because this is two-game stretch here that you're going to have to win some ball games from.
James?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of a lot of people have kind of overreacted on it. And I think, and again, it's wild that in the grand scheme of things that I feel like I'm one of the voices of reason right now, because normally I'm really aggravated in a loss, in particular a loss where I feel like we should have won. But when I go back and I look at this game, I got a chance to watch it for a second time, you could just really tell that they were flat for 2 quarters and a drive. And that happens when you're still trying to learn how to win. Now, I hate cultures, programs that are truly built and they have a tradition of winning, which we used to have, but we don't have that anymore. You may be able to get away with that, but you're going up against a Wake Forest team that, quite frankly, in the last 5 years has been exponentially better than Florida State. They're one of the winningest programs in the ACC in the last 5 years. Now, add to that what Chris just talked about, having 39 of those guys been a part of this winning tradition. Having 5th, 6th, and 7th year seniors. I can't even fathom a 7th year senior. Like, if you think about that, that's a guy who could be graduating law school right now that's in your program. And going to Wake Forest very well could happen because it's a very, very smart school. On top of that, very different type of offensive formation. The mesh, the slow mesh is something that requires a tremendous amount of patience and having a quarterback who can actually run this. Sam Hartman does a really, really good job of running it. Now, you go back, you look, you slept walk for 2 quarters. You couldn't get anything going offensively, and you did not do what I've been talking about, play complementary football. The offense did not help the defense. The defense didn't do anything for it seems like the first half, and the special teams definitely didn't help. On top of probably another game where we have some questionable game day management calls. That drive going into halftime, when you're playing for a field goal, when you could really use a touchdown at that point, and you're in the red zone, you have a 6-7 threat. You've got a guy, Michael Pittman, who have been playing well. You've got a running game that's been kind of hidden. You played well enough to be able to score there. You played well enough to win. But even in that second half, when you did wake up and you did make the game exciting, that defense stopped Wake Forest for the better part of 2 quarters. And the only thing that could be netted from that was 2 touchdowns. And that's just absolutely not acceptable. Now, Darius Washington did basically killed a drive by himself. Not to put all the blame on him, but he was just kind of one of those things. But it's a learning moment. In all of that being said, similar to the Clemson game, Clemson should have dominated Wake Forest, but Clemson killed themselves with penalties. Florida State, literally stat for stat, was on par with Wake Forest. The glaring difference was 11 penalties for 96 yards to their 4 penalties for 40 yards and our turnover. Those things kill drives. A drop screen. Actually, on the drive that Darius Washington kind of killed, if Lawrence Toy-Philly catches, I believe it was Lawrence Toy-Philly, if he catches that screen, it's probably a house call. They've got to take advantage of the opportunities that they get. And that comes with having a team that's not only young, but a team that's trying to learn how to win with a coach who is still trying to learn how to be not just a coach, but a coordinator on this type of level. Remember, Mike Norvell was a coordinator at Arizona State. Power 5, but not the USCs, not the Oregons out there on the West Coast. Nothing of this caliber. So these pressure cook games that Mike Norvell's coaching in, these are some of his first time coaching in these pressure cook games too. So everybody has to learn across the board. And if we just got dominated and flat out, even on the defensive stuff, like some of the catches, that's 2 6'5" wide receivers catching over some DBs that probably just lack ball skills. They're in position. You just have to make a play. I saw people calling from Fuller's Head again. I'm like, it's a coaching saying. The only thing I could have done better was ran the play myself. So it's difficult. It sucks. There is no moral victories and losses, but this was indicative of the Jimbo Fisher culture, indicative of a lot of programs. Until you become top to bottom just better than everybody else, you're going to have letdown games. Even Georgia's had this, but the letdown games for us unfortunately lead to losses, but you can't let one loss become two. So they got to get it straight. It's all correctable. And I think we're going to have another exciting game this weekend coming up against North Carolina State.
Chip.
I did not see this coming. Like I said, I kind of feel like that douche from LSU that was ranting and raving on his podcast saying how the Florida State wasn't going to be able to handle, what LSU was going to throw at them. I didn't see us losing. I thought our defense would actually get a push against that offensive line and blow up the mesh, and it really didn't happen. Like Hartman had all kind of time basically to ride the running back all the way damn near to the line of scrimmage before he'd either decided to pull it or just go ahead and give it. I thought our offense after the first series played uninspired. Like James said, they were flat. And, Jared Verse, when he came into the game, he gave it right before the first half, he gave us a little spark. And one thing I can say is the team didn't quit. They kept fighting. But Chris, like you and I talked about after the game, these guys saw it takes, they know they have talent, but they see now it's going to take more talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's the greatest part of all of this. That was the 5th game of the season. Luckily, we have quite a few more to play before, people should start throwing in the towels. I'm kind of disappointed in some of the fan base for going after young men individually. Yes, Fitz, our field goal place kicker, whatever, kickoff kicker, whatever all his duties are. Yes, he has had not the greatest 5 games of the season. Yes, obviously something's off. Yes, he's missing way too many extra points, field goals, kicking the ball out of bounds, stuff to that nature. 100% agree that the young man has got much room to improve. But I'm telling you, and everybody that is on my Facebook group page, or if I see you in general, if you want attention, all you got to do is to post something to this nature, telling Fitz to go back to his dorm room and to hurt himself, or to tell others to hurt him, or to say that this young man needs to off himself, things to that nature. If you say those things and I see it, not only am I going to say something to you to make you look like a fool, if it's stupid enough, I will report it to who it necessarily needs to be reported to, because I don't know if you're ignorant enough to say the things that you said, you may be ignorant enough to act on the things that you're saying. And no 19, 20, 21, no one of any age, but a child, a young man of sort, deserves to be pulled through the mud that way. On the SPEARATICS page on Facebook, I have multiple family members of these athletes, multiple coaches, multiple former coaches, high school wise, even down to Pee Wee, that had coached these kids. For y'all to say the things that you said, one, you should be extremely ashamed of yourself, and you probably should remove yourself from any type of sporting event where you could potentially lose, because anytime that a coin's flipped and you line up to play this game, you could lose, regardless of how great you play or regardless of how bad you play. There was a team error this past Saturday versus Wake Forest. There wasn't a individual that lost that game for us. There was a collective of many that
I'll
lost
add
the
to
game.
this, Chris, because everybody talks about. I talk to my post game thoughts and everything on my social media pages, and the first thing that come up was Ryan Fitzgerald. And you look at it, he had a 29-yard kick before when it was 28-7. It would have made it 28-10. He missed it. Okay. So it goes on. Mike Norvell elected to go for 2 points twice because he saw the momentum. He saw the confidence going down a little bit more. So he decided to go that route. Then his next kick was at the very end of the game. We were down by 10. You kind of had to do something because you're at 4th and 23 at that point. You didn't really have any reason to go for it and try to throw a Hail Mary and put your players in danger. Maybe he might make it. Maybe his confidence goes back up. But those are 2 kicks that really didn't put the game into kind of this situation. It wasn't something that you were like, okay, he missed a game-winning kick. Okay, let's make it all about the kicker at this point. I just think it's something of a scapegoat to a point where fans just have to understand, hey, that isn't the only problem in this game. We lost this game in multiple fashions, and Jordan Travis said it best. We got to stop hurting ourselves at the end of the day. And that's just basically what we did in this game. You can't blame it on Fuller, can't blame it on Fitz anymore. You got to go on to another scapegoat at this point because the excuses and the scapegoats are getting kind of old at this point. We lost to one good Wake Forest team at this point. Oh, well. Got to bounce back, like James said, against North Carolina State. You can't just keep basing it off of Fuller and Fitzgerald. Keep rinsing and repeating the same cycle over and over again because it gets kind of old. So,
Well, James, let me ask, put this in perspective. When we criticize what this team does well but could do better, or that this team did not do well at all, and it'd be a knucklehead moment, maybe for instance, how come I've never heard you, myself, Taylor, or even multiple other podcasts or multiple other media sites call out their family members or call out them to hurt themselves or stuff to that nature? It's not just a professionalism thing. It, to me, when these people went off on this particular young man, I personally couldn't believe what I was reading, and it just, people don't amaze me anymore, regardless if they're fans or not fans. But why do people not realize that a loss of this stature, us losing to a good Wake Forest team, that we're going to learn more from this, in my opinion? Obviously, as a fan, I'm greedy and would like to win, but we will learn a lot more from this loss than if we would have came back and won that game, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just my opinion, but I think we can learn a lot from this loss. Touch on some of those maybe a little bit, and I just want to figure out where people are coming from when they say the absurd things that were said. So while he's trying to fix the sound issue, what I'm getting at is we as a fan base are supposed to be held to a standard just as much as this team is. We are supposed to hold ourselves accountable, ourselves to a standard that we want this football team to hold themselves to, or for the coaches to hold themselves to. So what I don't understand is why is it okay for us to go and say stuff completely out of the side of our mouth instead of supporting these young men and supporting the coaching staff for whatever flaw that we might have saw in this game, for whatever issue there might have been? Why is it okay for this fan base to sit there and completely ridicule someone and try to run them out of the state?
don't understand from last season. You had basically where Florida State was coming down and they fell flat to Louisville last season. They allowed them to get up early. Second half was really coming back into that game. And then you saw in the next week against Syracuse what happened. We actually won a game. We were able to kind of be more productive on offense. The defense showed up in pivotal moments. I think that's what you're going to see in this game. And a lot of people are going to start eating crow because eventually this team is going to find a way to be able to be successful. They're not all the way there skill set wise and player wise just yet because I don't think they have enough horses to compete on a national level at an elite level just yet. But I do think that this team will bounce back from this effort. I just think people are overreacting and blowing smoke towards a situation where this is a good Wake Forest team, and you just have to take it how it is for right now.
Yeah, Chris, with that being said, this Wake Forest team would drag about 15 or 20 of the teams in the top 25.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Here's a big thing that I want people to take away from this. We've got, our next game is against NC State. Yes, we're playing NC State at home. But how many guys are battered and bruised and possibly not going to be, ready to go because they just took a beating from Clemson? I'm not saying that they got their tails beat as far as they wasn't competitive in the ball game. But when you go to 2 overtimes, that extensive amount of time of taking those hits, I don't think that NC State's going to be 100% on par with what a lot of people are thinking. I don't think we play well at NC State. I agree with everybody on that. But now we've got a pissed off group of guys that are going up to NC State to prove a point. Hopefully have one hell of a chip on their shoulder and can really pull one together and play a really clean game. This is the most penalized game we've played all year, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I think it was 9 penalties for 100 and something yards. Am I correct?
11
penalties. So James, yours is working.
All right, had to reset it. Do you want me to go back and speak on that, or are we good?
Go wherever. It's fine.
I think what it comes down to, when I was actually trying to be smart at Florida State before I realized I was brought there to play football and hit people. I tried in sports, sports management. One of the first lessons you learn is sports is a microcosm of society, and then after that, you learn that entertainment is an avenue for people to get away from their everyday life. And while people love to claim and discuss about how college football is amateurism and how much they love the purity of the game, the reality of the situation is these young men are entertainers. They're just not paid as such. And we have made it more professional every day. So people treat the young men as entertainers like they do with the NFL. And conversely, they believe that these guys should have the thick skin of which their coaches should have. You'll see more people ready to defend Mike Norvell with the honor who's getting paid over $5 million a year than they will, the young man like a Trayshawn Ward. Not saying people got on him for fumbling a ball, and all he gets is his $850 a month scholarship check, which he may or may not have, and maybe he has an NIL deal every now and then, but it's nothing. No real money, no real things put into it. They're still playing for some semblance of purity. So when you really look at the fact of what people say, it's why, especially at certain times, mainly on Fridays, because I don't try to troll during the week, but on Fridays I have time. You'll see me make very snide statements. That's when I'll go back and forth with people sometimes, and I'll say, at the end of the day, only one of us gets paid to have an opinion. I'll drop that very quick. Or you played with me on the video game, not the other way around. Or I can't help that some of the best moments in your life were shared. Probably the only time your father hugged you was after I scored a touchdown. No matter how much you hate me now, you cannot take away the fact that I was probably some of the happiest times in your life. And so you have to remember those things as an athlete or even as an entertainer, that people are coming to see you and not the other way around. And it's unfortunate. It's very difficult to teach somebody, especially when most of your life you've been, put on a pedestal. But it's, thick skin. I always go back to what my grandma says, and I won't repeat that again. But the bigger thing is, if you find yourself worrying about what the fans are saying, you're going to find yourself becoming a fan a lot faster than you wanted to become a fan. And I think it's wrong. I think nobody would want their child to be talked to in that manner. And I think what you guys have done with your monitoring of your pages is amazing. It's why even sometimes I have to check myself when I jokingly may talk about a mistake, like but never to the point where physical harm or some other stuff. I think that's corny and childish. And anybody inboxing an athlete or adding an athlete on social media for something negative is really you're inviting an energy that that 98.9% 75% of you can't match if it were brought to you. So why even go that route? So that's what I think. But plus, it's just it's one game. You know, and he played bad. That kid, and numerous guys played bad. But it doesn't come down to it. And like I said the other day, I do get on kickers, not because I'm a fan. It's just something we did when we played. They're off on another planet. They don't practice with us until the end. But I will say this: I don't envy the position that they're in. You're by yourself, and when you're playing, you have 10 other people that get to kind of divvy up the attention while you're playing. But when there's a kick, it's the only time that everybody in the stands, that everybody on TV is all focused on one person. I cannot imagine the amount of pressure that must be, especially when the game is on the line. So I give a little bit of empathy for that. But at the same time, I think if fans could just keep it to the game, the critiques of the game, I think you're fine. Like the facts are we missed the kick. Okay. The facts are we need to get better in the kicking game. Can't argue that. Nobody can argue that. Everything else outside of, even if you got a little colorful with it, I'm cool with that. But suggesting somebody harm themselves, suggesting that, you wish you knew their father or mom some years, I think those are all things that are just going over the top for a guy who's never done anything. The worst thing he's ever done to any of us is miss a kick in a game that most of us didn't play in. We just got a chance to enjoy. At the end of the day, it was 3.5 hours. I was entertained for 3.5, 4 hours, and so was my son. So I wish we would have won, but I'm not going to go beat up a kicker because we lost by 10 points. Because at the end of the day, we lost by 10 points. I don't really know the math very well, but you need 4 threes to be able to get more than 10, right? I know 3 threes don't get it done. So it doesn't matter. He could have missed 3 of them bad boys and we still losing.
Taylor, I'm gonna ask you a couple of these questions that were I'm gonna ask because it was directed towards you. Okay. I'm assuming this is one of your followers. At this point, do you not think that there is some blame to be put on Coach Adam Fuller for the defense of play calling that we had this past Saturday?
I don't think there's really much of a blame. I just think the cornerbacks need to be a little bit better. Marion Cooper is not really a cornerback that we thought he was coming into fall camp. He's really struggled lately, and I just think it's kind of a situation where you're looking at some guys on the roster like Renato Green. I think he's solid. I don't think he's quite elite just yet. AZ still kind of coming into his own. Sam McCall still kind of coming into his own. Safeties are pretty good with Akeem Dent, Jamie Robinson. But just overall, you saw Greedy Vance basically getting, hung over by a receiver at that point on 3rd and 7, pivotal point in the game, wasn't able to come through with it. I just think that the defensive backs are really not really holding you back defensively, but it is kind of a glaring weakness at times, and I think you kind of have to scheme yourself around it. And those wide receivers, though, for Wake Forest, those trio wide receivers they have with A.T. Perry leading the charge there, I think is a tough task. And I think Fuller's doing the best he can with that. And like James talked about, you can only do so much until you get the coach to come out in the field and do it for you. I mean,
Chip, this question's for you. When you were at the game, the environment itself, obviously, there was a decent amount of fans that showed up where, a lot of people thought there wouldn't be. Did you feel like the fans at any point thought that Florida State was out of this game? Or how about yourself? Did you feel like we could come back and win this game?
Well, I noticed towards the end of the second quarter, you had a lot of fans just around me just wanting, screaming what the, blank is going on offense, defense, wondering why the defense couldn't get off field. No, I never thought they were out of the game because, and James played as well. I've been in a game where we were down 20-0 at halftime, came back and won. So, I mean, you're never out of it. You always have that puncher's chance. But you saw some of the fair weather fans that just showed up that are only there for when we're winning. But I would like to say that those fans were very few and far between for what was there. I mean, nobody left in the section I was in until, right at the last minute.
Well,
And I believe the announced attendance for that game was, I think, like 69,700 and something, I believe is what they announced it to be.
Yeah.
So
I'll take this question, seeing how it was directed toward me. The question was, is at any point did I believe that we went away from the run game too soon, or we didn't run the ball enough? Were we trying too hard to force the ball down the field with Jordan Travis and the wide receivers? No, I don't feel like we were running the ball successfully most of the time. Our offensive line wasn't given we wasn't given a whole lot of time to do our RPO style at all. Most of the time, Jordan was rolling out not by design, but rolling out because he had to get out of the pocket. Just like on the design run, the quarterback keeper where he fumbled the ball. That ball would have never been fumbled if I believe it was 76 or 71 completely missed the block, which kind of blindsided J-Trav to where the fumble was caused. I don't feel like we went away from anything too much. I feel like, I will say this, Jordan Travis in the first half was definitely off. He was throwing the ball high. He was throwing the ball off the spot. He seemed to be off in the first half. I think when he came back in the second half and they put that scoring drive together, that he was on for most of the game after that. But our offensive line took a complete beating. Matter of fact, the defensive line and the offensive line, we got beat pretty bad in the trenches on both sides.
Yeah, Jordan Travis, I actually saw the statistic earlier. I think it was by Adrianson from ESPN. She talked about how Jordan Travis in the first half was pressured on 11 of his 17 dropbacks in the first half. That's pretty rough. That's getting beat up front, pretty much.
James, this question's for you. Did you ever at any point feel like we were out-coached in this game?
Okay. Yeah, all right. I'll try to get this mic stuff situated. But out-coached a few times. But that's kind of that coach is good. Clausen is. I'll make sure I say that right here. Yeah, he's a damn good coach. I was getting confused with next week's coach, who's another good one. But I think really what it just comes down to is we weren't ready to play. And I think sometimes what happens when I'll give Clausen his props for playing it in the media. When you go out there and you kind of let guys read the clips and they get too focused on that, sometimes that may dictate the game. I think the guys, they can't. And then after that first drive, I think they just thought they were going to fold like Boston College folded. And that just wasn't the case. So, but as far as that slow mesh offense to our defense in that first half, I believe we were outclassed. You had guys breaking coverage. As much as I praise him, I'll get on little bro a little bit. Kalen DeLoach definitely. There was a play, I think a swing route where we completely missed the running back. He got lost in coverage, and that was a big gain. But outside of that, they dictated the pace of the first half. Now the second half, I think we came out. We made our adjustments very well. The problem is that you have to be perfect. And one of the things that I really want, I'm curious, I know I won't get the answer, but I would love to know, and I know it's probably because he's hurt, but if we're going to run the zone, you have to have the ability to pull out. And I think a lot of time that would have made the running game more effective. But it was really where Jordan Travis was just in a straight up give situation. And while he may not be able to get the 40, 50, 60-yard runs that he would normally get, to use a former coach that we didn't really like, Dan Mullen, you don't have to be a great runner. You have to be a willing runner when you run this system. So that was something I was expecting to see more of. I got it right on the Micah Pittman stuff, but we did not really get a chance to see Jordan Travis showcase his legs. I think I don't know what they're holding that for, but it's this stretch right here, these next couple games, we got to make people fear Jordan Travis's legs.
Absolutely. Taylor, this question is for you. This one's kind of a two-part question because they're giving kudos to the last show. So on the last show, before James came on, I alluded to that I thought this would be Micah Pittman's breakout game, which James didn't get to hear any part of when I was saying it. And then when James came in, he said that he thought Micah Pittman was going to have or be the guy for this game. Do you recall who your guy was that you picked? Because I know you said 4 on both sides of the ball at one point. Do you recall what guy you called to need to have a great game for us to win this game? Or maybe even a crew of guys that maybe the Lions needed to do well?
Yeah, the one guy that really disappointed me in terms of impact players on offense, I had Trey Benson. And Trey Benson was not himself. I believe he had 4 carries for 10 yards on a defense, a weight defense that is last in the ACC in missed tackles. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to get broken loose there. The running game, I thought, was kind of non-existent other than Trayshawn Ward's 30-yard carry there. I was very disappointed in that regard. I thought Lawrence Toafili had a couple of opportunities. He dropped a huge screen pass that would have probably went for a touchdown, but dropped it, and you just saw a lot of missed opportunities. And I thought that Trey Benson was a prime example of that missed opportunity. Hopefully he can come back against Wake Forest, play a little bit more motivated, and kind of go from there because I know he'll bounce back.
So, Chip, this one's for you, and I was talking about this with a couple of people offline earlier. Does everybody feel like Jay Trav's not 100%, and maybe that's why he's not running like he usually could? Chip, do you feel like that might be a cause of why Jay Trav's not taking off as much as maybe he used to?
I'm not quite sure, but because a couple times that he actually went to take off to run, like you didn't see a noticeable limp, you didn't see anything like that. I think I want to say, I feel like he might be trying to stay in the pocket longer to have a bigger play than use his legs. But like, James and like Taylor said, like his legs are the biggest threat about him. I mean, yes, he is a great passer, but his legs are what's going to keep defense honest.
James, if I want each one of y'all to give an answer to this, but if you was to say who should be held to the most accountability for this loss and why? And Taylor, you can start, or James can start. It doesn't matter.
Well, I'll say a guy that didn't even play in this game, and that's Fabian Lovett. If Fabian Lovett would have played in this game, I think you would have seen a drastic impact. It doesn't help when Verse has 24 snaps that he played in that game, kind of on a snap count there. I just thought the defensive line was kind of at fault. You saw good moments from Patrick Payton and other guys like that. But I think you severely missed Lovett in this game, and I think that's partially the reason why you weren't able to get up front and attack the line of scrimmage a lot more, and I think that was part of your issues.
You said who do we hold accountable, or who is
who's the biggest reason why we didn't come out with a win, and who do you hold most accountable for us not winning?
Oh, I mean, without a doubt, the injuries, like Taylor just alluded to, you can't have Fabian, you can't have your top D tackle, your top offensive lineman, be banged up and expect to be able to go up, and that's not even alluding to like guys like Bless, if I remember correctly, and a few other guys that are hurt that probably would be starting that aren't starting right now. So there's that. But the person who I will blame, and I don't mean this in the sense of like, oh, I'm pointing the finger at you, or if I see you, I'm going to punch you. It all begins and ends at the top. I would say that's on Mike Norvell. You as a coach, as a head coach, your job is to understand the pulse of your team. You have to know it's your job to have them prepared when they run through that tunnel. They have to be on 10 already. It cannot be a feeling out thing. So whatever we did we got off track a little bit. So he has to get them a little bit more focused. He's also the play caller, from what I'm understanding from most of the stuff, as Alex Atkins gets an understanding of his situation. There were times when you could not see continuity in our offense. There was times when it was clicking, but again, situational game management can be under scrutiny, as there's been a few times, but this time it bit us in the butt. And at the end of the day, you need to control what's going on with special teams. You need to have a competition. You need to go have our kicker maybe go speak with somebody. But we've seen this happen, and this is week 5. It's around the time where we got to start having some significant answers to the problem so that it doesn't continue to come up. That's why you have a backup kicker, you have a backup punter, you have competition in every position. There's no need to not have it in the special teams as well. So I say those things knowing that all those things are fixable, but there was no real, like, there wasn't, like, if we were in Louisville, or was it the little pink curtains or whatever the podcast was for Louisville, I could clearly blame Javaris Brownlee as the glaring reason why we lost. I could clearly blame, but there was really no one person that just kept getting beat or just kept failing. So I have to put it on the coach, because at the end of the day, it begins and ends with him.
So I'm probably going to raise a couple of eyebrows with who I say is 100% accountable for this loss. Florida State administration and the university body itself is who's responsible for this loss. The reason that I say this is because there's things that are going on behind the scenes that these young men are dealing with that they should not be dealing with. They are waiting on certain funds that they should not be waiting on. And then I'll blame Mother Nature as who I'm holding accountable. A lot of these young men lost family members, lost homes, maybe even lost family members. There's still 2 or 3 guys that I've talked to that still have not heard from a decent amount of their family that live in central South Florida. So Mother Nature took a big hit on the – look, guys, I've been told this my whole life. This game's played from the neck up. But when you start screwing around up here with what's going on with Mother Nature, and this, tragic event just happened where people are losing their homes, their livelihoods, or even their lives, and then you've got young men up here in Tallahassee that, didn't have to deal with the storm itself, but they're definitely dealing with the effects of the storm because of what it's done to their family. But there are things that these young men can't control. Mother Nature is one. Head coach Mike Norvell cannot control the nature of life itself. He can't control what goes on in life. But what can be controlled is certain young men wondering when they're going to have certain funds to do certain things. Nobody really knows the answer, what's going on, why it's happening. But we've had, and James can vouch for this, this is the most amount of players that have called me NIL wise because of how long it's been since they've gotten their normal stipends. There's been no reason given why they didn't get it done, whatever. This is why it's important for the fan base to donate toward the NIL portion of Florida State for when things like this happen, so that there are emergency funds that Micanopy 1851 can go to, or there are emergency funds that Rising Spirit can go to. When us as a fan base wants nothing but winning, but won't put our money where our mouth is, it's kind of ass backwards. So I put Florida State University itself and the fan base itself are responsible for the loss because these young men couldn't focus on what the hell they were supposed to be focused on. No coach can get that off of your mind. No human being can get that off of your mind. When you've got not a red cent to your name and you don't know where your next meal's coming from and you ain't heard from your family members in 3 days since the hurricane, there's a lot you can't do nothing with that. You can't fix it. So I do apologize if people don't. I don't apologize for my statement and what I believe, but I apologize if you're taking it the wrong way. What I'm stating is we have to. They say just like every young man, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a fan base to support a team. We have to support the team, whether that be financially, whether that be emotionally, whether that be whatever it is. We have to step up as a fan base, and we have to step up as a university and make sure that these young men and women are taken care of. So that's who I hold responsible for the loss. I will ask this question to let me see who it was to. This one is to Taylor. Okay, so Taylor, is there a reason why we have not seen the backup kicker in your eyes? Isn't he supposedly a former 5-star kicker? I don't know if they rate kickers at 4 and 5 stars, but is there a reason you think that Norvell has not chose to pull up the guy behind Fitz?
No, I just think Norvell is pretty confident what he is. He wants to give him a chance, wants to give him an opportunity to shine on the right stage. And at that point, he just hasn't delivered so far. You're hoping he can bounce back and be able to be successful. But right now, he's kind of struggling with his confidence. And James talked about it before with the kicker he had on his team before. It's just a level of confidence, mental awareness for everything. You have to understand with everything going on with that. So it's just a lot going on for kickers. And like you said, you got to have the right headspace.
All right, Chip, this one's for you. Did you feel like at any time that – hold on, let me read the question right again. Did you feel like at any time that the team had given up the offensive line or the defensive line? Did you ever feel like they gave up on the team or themselves?
Honestly, no. That's one thing I commended them on is, had it been a team in the last, 3 or 4 years, you probably would have seen them, quit, throw their sucker in the dirt. No, this team kept fighting, and they got within a touchdown. I commend the coaching staff on that. Just not enough adjustments were made, and things happen. It's a loss. Just pick yourself back up, dust your shoulders off, unless you go to build on this loss.
I will add to this, Chip, because, like I said, the veteran team won this game. The last possession that Wake Forest had, they went 18 plays, 66 yards. Just like that, to kick a field goal, have a drive that lasted 6.5 minutes to seal the deal. And Florida State had their opportunities to seal the deal, get the ball back, and tie the game up. But guess what? Wake Forest basically sealed that game, and they said, we're going to go out here and get a field goal and be up by 10 and win this game. So
I want everybody to do me a favor, and y'all make sure that you go check out Chip on, if you have Facebook, go look up Unconquered 850, the group page, join it, and there's a numbers of former players that are on his page. He has a great relationship with former athletes at Florida State. James Coleman's one of them. He's on that page. Hell, I think James is on all of the Florida State pages, though. He's even on mine. So I'm not even special on that part. So, but make sure y'all go and check out Chip's page. Taylor's page on Instagram, the way he breaks it down, and he almost puts out an article, which is really cool on Instagram. The way he breaks the game down, or even the way he breaks down the way he thinks the game's going to go before it ever happens, is a really good read, both before, during, and after the game. The way that he sets stuff up keeps your mind engaged with what you're looking for on the field. I've said this to a lot of people. I think Taylor, without meaning to be, he's an educator. Like, he's almost like the teacher of football. Like, he's trying to get fans to see certain things that they don't pay attention to begin with. So if you read what he's writing, then you start paying attention to things that you probably wouldn't in the first place. So make sure you go follow Norvell Central on Instagram. He also has Twitter. Chip also has Twitter, but I'm telling y'all where their niche is, where they're doing their best work. James, you can go find him absolutely anywhere, but Den Media is his YouTube page. He does a show twice a week. That's his own, 3 times a week, excuse me. I only catch 2 of them. That's the problem. But anyways, he has 3 shows a week. He covers a multitude of things. It's not just Florida State. He covers Jaguars. He covers certain life events that happens. He pretty much talks about whatever's going on. It's a pretty good show to listen to. If you want to get your mind off of possibly a Florida State loss to Wake Forest, you can go listen to why he's excited about what Jacksonville did the past 2 weeks in a row. You can find him at on Twitter. You can find him on Instagram as well, but I think he does his best work on his YouTube page personally. And y'all can decipher that. But you can find me on all 3. I don't know where I do my best work at. I really don't care where I do my best work at, to be honest, as long as you follow me. But we've got an exciting guest coming on next Wednesday. I won't release who that is yet, but we have a really cool guest coming on next Wednesday. I've also got a couple of the players that are supposed to be coming on. I think the first one is Thursday of this week, so our next episode here, we'll have one of the athletes come on. And then there's going to be some really big news come out underneath SPEARATICS. We're going to have another podcast that veers off that's by SPEARATICS. I have nothing to do with it personally. Like it's not my podcast. I don't speak on it, but it's someone that I'm bringing in that's very passionate about certain sports at Florida State. If y'all don't notice, I cover pretty much football and football only. So he's going to bring a different show out that's going to be covering multi sports. So that'll be exciting. We're going to release that on that same Wednesday that we have the guest coming. He's not the one that I'm talking about, but so there's 2 new guests on next Wednesday's episode, excuse me. But that's one of them. And then I fully expect for the Clemson game, James had just released the tailgate that we'll all be having, which is huge. It always is. He says that he can't top the one that happened in New Orleans. He doesn't think that they're going to top that one. I would like for Florida State fans to prove him wrong. I'm sure he wouldn't mind being proved wrong either. But it was a lot that went on in New Orleans. It was a really good tailgate, really good time. But James, if you don't mind, come on and tell people where they can find out the information on the tailgate, and then where they can follow you. And if you fall off after, so I can finish the little bit advertising bits that I've got.
Yeah. At Big Game James _36. It will be the thing that'll be there. It's our tailgates, $40. All you can eat, all you can drink. Every bit of the proceeds that's raised goes towards our community endeavors, and right now buying tickets for the Georgia Tech game. So we had 100 kids go to this past game. They had a great time. My guy CJ posted the video. It was amazing. Actually, almost caught me. My eyes started sweating a little bit. I had to stop him to see those kids be so happy. We've done that twice. The goal is to get 100. So that I got to raise $3,000 for that. So any money that we make for this Clemson tailgate will go toward that. But we have top shelf liquor. We'll have beer. It's at the top of lot 19. You can pay day of. The tickets just really help us make sure we have enough food and beverage so that things don't run out. So if everybody makes a run on Friday, it's very difficult for me to know how much food that I'll have to have if 100 people buy tickets on Friday. But we'll make accommodations because we're in Tallahassee and there's a lot of things that I can do. But shout out to ABC Fine Wine and Spirits and thehumidor.com. There will be cigars there as always. Good music, good vibes. Peter Warwick and Snoop Menace have already said that they will be there. So if you would like to get an autograph or get some stuff signed, those 2 guys will be in attendance to hang out, chill out. And you never know who you're going to see. We've had past presidents walk through. We've had all kinds of politicians, celebrities, entertainers. And then there's just me. I mean, I'm just, Chris came and everybody was like, super surprised to see him. at the last one. So, but we'd love to see everybody there again. All this goes toward my community involvement, and I appreciate everything. And go Noles.
Appreciate it, James, and go Knowles. Taylor, man, let everybody know what you got going on. Are you going to be at the tailgate at the Clemson game?
I am. It's going to be a huge environment. Florida State just announced it's going to be a 7:30 kickoff. So the biggest thing with James's tailgate and his fundraising ideas there, if they beat NC State, the world is your oyster at that point. You are a one-loss team going into a primetime game, probably going to be College game day. You never know. I think Florida State's going to have to step up to the challenge, but it's great to see James is doing great things in the community, and I'm super excited to be going up there and seeing him as well, and seeing all the great things that James does around his neck of the woods, and really excited for the rest of this podcast and the people that we're joining and having those new interviewees on, and super excited for the rest of the future of that.
Let them know where to follow you at, buddy.
All right, it's Norvell Central in lowercase, and then Central Norvell and Twitter, and also I have an YouTube channel as well. It's Norvell Central also there, trying to find some ways to be creative on YouTube, still trying to find that niche there, but going to try to find it eventually.
You'll find it. It's coming. We've got more and more things coming together. Taylor, I appreciate you coming on.
Of course.
As always, man, you kill it. The statistics, man, people love it. So I love it because I don't have to look it up.
Appreciate y'all. And y'all have a good one, okay?
Appreciate it, Taylor. Chip, I'm not going to say any names, but I will let everybody know because I've received over 7,000 messages between Facebook and Twitter. They're wanting to go after this particular person. I don't want that to happen. I'm taking care of what's going on the right way. I'm not doing this the wrong way. I don't need a Florida State mob going after anybody. I don't believe in running people out either. I don't know why the gentleman made the mistake on stating that he was ever partnered with me or that SPEARATICS had anything to do with him. I have no idea where that came from. Me and the gentleman have never had ill words with each other. So it was completely out of left field for me. I don't know if it's because of the success of the show. Have no idea where it came from, but he had told multi fans that that I was basically a shady human being and that I used people and I used him, stole things as far as SPEARATICS goes from him. Don't know why that was said. Have no idea what I did to him because I didn't do anything. But it will be taken care of the right way. So, Chip, if you don't mind, let everybody know what you're trying to do at Unconquered 850, how they can find you, stuff to that nature, please.
You can find me on Facebook at Unconquered 850. What we do is just try to bring the fans and the former players together, build back that family atmosphere, and basically celebrate what the former players brought to Florida State and the path that they laid towards the climb they're doing now. Also, I've got one of my moderators has created a Twitch, which I'm still not sure what Twitch is, but it's under Unconquered 850. Guy named Joe Myers. He's a good guy. I've known him for a long time, and I'm sure he'll rock out with it. You can find me also on Twitter, but it's just under Chip Westerly 9.
Well, Chip, I appreciate you coming on.
Anytime, man.
Yeah, I enjoy you coming on. It seems like this is going to be the set 4 guys that are on this podcast from here on out. I appreciate you as always, and go Noles.
Go Noles.
Everybody, I have very, very few seconds left to cover this, so I'm going to do the best that I can. Look, everybody that is writing me that they love me and they've got my back and they support me at SPEARATICS, 100% could not ask for a better fan base, could not ask for better support. Y'all are what make me want to do this even more than I already do because of the love that I have for the university. But I love each and every one of y'all. I appreciate all of the kind messages, the I love yous. Means a lot to me. Y'all have a good one. And the Noles are going to go beat NC State at NC State. Y'all have a good one.